This will unlock the New York Mets and stop having Carlos Mendoza and fans look like this and more like this. Smiling and happy, we finally won a baseball game, and a big reason why is because of the New York Met lineup card. Skip, Carlos Mendoza decided to switch two veterans in this lineup, two big pieces in the lineup last night, and ended up paying its dividends as the Mets won Game 2 of their doubleheader 7-3. And this game after Mendoza and the Mets got a lot of heat in Game 1 after Mendy took out starting pitcher Clay Holmes after just 90 pitches and elected to go to Reed Garrett, and both of those decisions backfired on him. So the Mets go ahead and go into Game 2 with a lineup switch, and it worked well. They ended up winning. So we'll go into this lineup change. Who's involved? Well, you're going to have to stay tuned only on Mets Digest to find out. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. I'll take you through all of it, and just like Mendy made the right decision to switch the lineup, go ahead and make the right decision to subscribe, as 67.3% of you that watch these videos are not in fact subscribed. So please do me a favor, do us a favor here on Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this lineup change. And first of all, shout out to Adam. He actually did a video on this. It would be this morning if you're on the East Coast. It might be last night if you're on the West Coast. And this basically dove into the game itself. And I'm going to talk more about the lineup change, but I will mention the game. If you want a little bit more details about Game 2 of this doubleheader against the Brewers, go ahead and check out Adam's video, specifically the first 8, 9, maybe 10 minutes of that video. But let's go ahead and dive into this. And we're going to start with the box score from last night. Now, everyone did well. The Mets had 9 hits, but 5 of them came from Nimmo and Lindor, and all 7 RBIs came from those two guys. Yes, Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor were the 2 players that were switched in Mendoza's lineup. Normally, Lindor leads off and Nimmo hits second. Well, Mendy decided to flip that right around. He went Nimmo in the leadoff spot and Lindor in the 2-hole, obviously driving in all 7 of the New York Mets runs last night in their 7-3 victory against the Milwaukee Brewers. And it came against a really, really solid pitcher, which we'll hear a little bit later when we hear from the players and the manager. So let's start off with Francisco Lindor. 19-22 was the New York Mets record last year before Mendoza and the team switched him into the leadoff spot after a 4-0 shutout loss against the Philadelphia Phillies. Since then, the New York Mets have gone 118-89 in 207 regular season games with Lindor in the leadoff spot, and they went 7-6 in the postseason and obviously reached the NLCS last year, but Mendy decided to go for another lineup change. The first time he did a lineup change with Lindor, moving him from the 3 to the leadoff spot, obviously it worked. You just heard the stats. We'll hear a little bit later with some statistics with the Juan Soto movement from the 2 to the 3, and now he ends up moving Lindor from the 1 to the 2 and Nimmo from the 2 to the 1, which obviously worked last night. Now, what I want to take a look at here are the splits for Francisco Lindor. Obviously, he had a really hot start, but look at that month of June. It was really, really bad. 204, 259, 369, good for just a 628 OPS. And this is a guy who is starting in the All-Star game. Video to come on that. Congratulations to Francisco Lindor. But this is a guy starting in the All-Star game, and he had a 628 OPS in the month of June. He was also 0 for 4 with a strikeout in Game 1 of the doubleheader to start off the month of July, but he got really hot and had a great Game 2 after Mendoza made the move to put him in the 2. So I personally believe that worked. Very, very, very small sample size, just one game, but look, it worked. Now let's go ahead and talk about Lindor in each of the spots. I have this same thing for Brandon Nimmo coming up. And as you can see, he has the most experience and he has some really good statistics in the leadoff spot. And in fact, Lindor throughout his career is actually worst in the second spot if he has at least 100 games played, or at least 100 at-bats, I might say, as well. 4 through 9, he doesn't even have 100 at-bats, so really, I'm not counting them. They're on the screen if you want to see them, but mainly focused on that 1, 2, and 3 for Francisco Lindor. And obviously, he's best in the leadoff spot and worst in the 2-hole, but the difference, it's not that substantial. 20 points in OBP is relatively substantial. In fact, it's 100 OPS points, but it's not as substantial because Francisco Lindor is going to be a streaky all-star regardless of where he's hitting in the lineup. And I think when Lindor has these really, really cold stretches, I think it's the right move to flip around the batting order. You saw it last year. Lindor was terrible. He was awful to start off the season, and then Mendy switched him to the leadoff spot, and it worked great, and he finished second in MVP voting, and if it wasn't for Shohei Ohtani being incredible, he would end up winning the MVP. And then Lindor, he has a great start to 2025, but then he got cold starting in the month of June, and now Mendy is switching him again, and at least for the one game, it has worked really, really well. Now, why did Mendy make the decision? Well, I think in part because look at those stats from Brandon Nimmo. He obviously has the most experience, most games played, most at-bats in the leadoff spot, and his stats are also really good when you take a look at anytime he has at least 100 at-bats. Again, the 8 and the 9, he just doesn't have enough at-bats to make any general conclusions, but he has the second highest batting average in that first spot. He has the third highest OBP out of any spot that he's in, second highest slugging, and third highest OPS. Now, the second highest OPS is actually in the second spot for Brandon Nimmo, but overall you can see he's a much better and a much more consistent hitter when he is in the lineup spot, and obviously he has the most experience, which I think is a big factor as to why Nimmo was in the leadoff spot. And keep in mind, he's a fast guy, and when he's not playing, when they're facing the lefty, Starling Marte will be playing in Nimmo's spot, who's also a fast guy and can work as a leadoff hitter. So I think this move overall works really, really well for Carlos Mendoza. And look, we cannot question Mendy. This is Juan Soto batting in the second and the third spot this year here in 2025, and the numbers speak for themselves. When he was hitting in the second spot, 247, 382, 437 slash, good for a 819 OPS, which is really good, but it's not Juan Soto really good. Want to hear what's Juan Soto really good? When he bats in the 3 spot. Ever since Mendy made the switch back on May 21st, Soto in the 3 spot is hitting 269, 421, 585, good for a 1.006 OPS. That is phenomenal. Really, really good from Juan Soto. We saw it last year with Lindor with the switch from Mendy. We've seen it now with Soto's switch, and let's go ahead and see if the Nimmo/Lindor switch that Mendy made last night is going to pay its dividends. Obviously, we have to hear from the skip, though, about why he actually made this move. So let's go ahead and hear what did Carlos Mendoza say. He said, quote, "It's baseball. I'm going to make a lot of decisions when I'm making out a lineup, when I'm making a pitching change. They're going to work and they're not going to work. And when they don't work, it's on me. And when they work, it's on the player." It's as simple as that. So he's obviously taking the blame whenever it doesn't work, and he's giving the players the credit when it does. Great words there. Great quote from the skip. And according to an SNY article, he, quote, said that with a smile about the results from last night. He goes on to continue and says, quote, "Look, you're talking about 2 really good players. For me, as a manager, to make those types of decisions, it's a lot easier when they're all in. When you get superstars that are willing to do whatever it takes to help the team win a baseball game, that is so critical. As a manager, that's all you need. It's a privilege for me, and I'm glad that they went out there and they executed and we got good results there." So obviously Mendy is a lot more happy as the Mets finally won a baseball game, and he mentions the selflessness from Nimmo and Lindor. Well, they actually talk about the selflessness from one another, as Nimmo said, quote, "I've told Mendy I don't care where I hit. Francisco had a great game as well. Whatever helps us win. That's what I'm down for." That's the kind of attitude you want to hear from a player. And just like Nimmo, Lindor had nothing different. He said, quote, "Whatever it takes to win." Nimmo came out today, set the tone, hit a grand slam. He did fantastic today. I mean, these are basically the same words from Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo. Whatever it takes to win. I don't have to hit in one place. I'll hit wherever the team thinks is the best thing. Selflessness goes such a long way in the sport of baseball, as Lindor continues to say, quote, "We're a good team. There's good hitters here. Everyone is playing for each other. Everyone is striving to be better. This is a tough stretch. We got to go out there and take it. And for everybody here to go out in the second game and have a sense of urgency of winning, it's good." So obviously Lindor being that leader, that hopefully soon to be captain that we all know and love, and it's awesome. Obviously, the team really, really has each other's backs, and that is critical for a baseball team. Now, Nimmo went on to mention later how he did really, really well, and the team did really, really well against a great pitcher in Jacob Misiorowski. He says, quote, "Big momentum shift, especially against him. him being Mizorowski. He's done really well since he's been in the big leagues. Nice to get a lead there. It was a cool moment. You could feel the crowd getting behind us and anticipating a blow right here. Going up there, not trying to do too much. When it went out, it was definitely cool. The crowd went wild. The energy was palpable in the stadium. So Met fans, they're back. Especially after game one, because it was a Wednesday afternoon game, the crowd was pretty empty. There weren't a lot of fans in the stands, and they packed it out for the nightcap game. And obviously, Nimmo and the players felt the positives of having that crowd behind them. Let's go ahead and quickly take a look at Jacob Mizorowski's stats, as he has been absolutely wonderful. Look at those stats in June. Those were his first 3 career major league starts, 16 innings pitched, a 1.13 ERA, 0.61 batting average against, and then in his 3 2/3 last night, he was clipped at a 12.27 ERA and 3.13 batting average against. So the Mets really did a great job against a fantastic pitcher and upcoming star in Jacob Mizorowski. Now, as for going forward, we're going to hear from Philip Martinez of SNY. He says, quote, Mendoza didn't commit to this lineup for the series finale on Thursday. That's today against the Milwaukee Brewers, but said he will continue to be flexible when they are looking for ways to win games. So who knows if the Mets are actually going to pursue this lineup tonight and going forward. I hope they do, because it really, really worked well. But let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think this lineup change is actually substantial and big for the New York Mets? Do you think it's sustainable? I personally believe it is. I think the stats show it, and this will actually work moving forward with Nimmo in the leadoff spot, and then a deadly 2-3-4 punch of Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso. But let me know, do you agree down below? Thank you so much as always for watching. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you today. And let's go Mets.